The snowstorm came out of nowhere, wild and unforgiving. An army unit, camping in the middle of the wilderness, was caught by surprise. Snow fell so heavy, it felt like the world had disappeared. The freezing wind roared, shaking their tents and cutting deep into their bones. 2 soldiers lay hurt, their breaths shallow and weak. The others were scared, trapped with no idea how to escape. The cold grew stronger and hope began to fade. Would they survive this deadly storm? Or was this the end for all of them? Who could save them now? Time moved slowly, each second heavier than the last. The soldiers clung to one another, their breaths visible in the freezing air. Their food and water were almost gone, and the bitter cold seeped into their bones. The injured men groaned softly, their strength fading with every passing hour. Fear gripped the group like an icy hand, whispering that no one would find them. Would the storm claim them all? Was there anyone out there who even knew they needed help? The darkness of the night seemed to answer with silence. Out of the endless sea of white, a shadow emerged. The soldiers squinted, unsure if their eyes were playing tricks on them. Slowly, the shape became clear, a horse, standing tall against the howling wind. It was Robbin, the sturdy horse from a nearby village, his coat dusted with snow, his breath visible in the icy air. He moved with purpose, as if he knew exactly where he needed to be. But why was Robbin here? What could one horse do against the fury of the storm? Could he truly be their miracle in the middle of this frozen nightmare? Robbin stood firm, his dark eyes steady, almost as if he was urging the soldiers to move. For a moment, doubt lingered. Could they really trust a lone horse in the middle of a deadly storm? Desperation left them no choice. Gathering their courage, the soldiers followed Robbin into the blizzard, their boots crunching in the deep snow. The wind screamed around them, and the path ahead was invisible. But Robbin moved with purpose, as if guided by something unseen. Each step felt like a gamble. Was Robbin leading them to safety? Or were they walking deeper into the storm's grip? Only time would tell if this horse was their savior or a false hope. The storm raged on, an unrelenting force that seemed determined to swallow them whole. The soldiers, exhausted and shivering, followed Robbin through the knee-deep snow. Each step felt heavier than the last, their bodies begging them to stop. Robbin pressed forward, his movements sure and confident, as if he knew a path no one else could see. The freezing wind howled, biting at their faces, and the night seemed endless. Doubts crept into their minds. How could a horse navigate such chaos? Was he leading them to safety or guiding them straight into the storm's trap? With every step, the line between hope and danger blurred, and the soldiers had no choice but to trust the mysterious horse. Through the blizzard, Robbin's steady pace suddenly slowed. The soldiers looked up, barely able to believe their eyes. A small, weathered cabin stood tucked away in the snow-covered trees. Robbin stopped, his breath clouding the icy air, and pawed at the ground as if signaling their arrival. The cabin door creaked open, revealing an old man wrapped in layers of worn wool. His eyes widened at the sight of the soldiers, battered and frostbitten. "What on earth?" he muttered, ushering them inside. The warmth of the fire seemed unreal after hours in the freezing storm. But the biggest question lingered. How did Robbin know this place? Was it just luck? Or had the brave horse led them to exactly who they needed? A doctor who might save the injured? The soldiers couldn't shake the feeling that Robbin was more than just a horse. Inside the cabin, the old doctor worked quickly, his hands moving with practiced precision. The wounded soldiers lay on the floor, pale and weak, their injuries growing worse by the minute. The doctor's face was set in grim determination as he worked to stabilize them. Robbin stood at the window, his large figure silhouetted against. the howling storm watching over them as if guarding them from something unseen. Outside, the wind screamed and the snow piled higher, trapping them inside the cabin. Time was running out. The doctor's efforts were relentless, but would it be enough? The soldiers could feel their strength slipping away. Was the storm the real enemy here? Or was there something far darker waiting for them in the shadows, something that Robbin seemed to sense? As the doctor continued his work, he looked up at Robbin through the window, his eyes filled with wonder. "I know that horse," he murmured. "He used to be mine." The soldiers, still recovering, looked at each other, puzzled. The old man's voice grew softer. He wandered off years ago, never to be seen again, until now, in the middle of this storm. The realization hit them all at once. Robbin, the horse who had appeared out of nowhere to guide them to safety, was no stranger. He was a part of the doctor's past, a horse who had disappeared without a trace, and now he was back. But why? Why had Robbin returned now after so many years? What had driven him to risk everything to save the soldiers? Was it just fate? Or was there something deeper behind his actions? Something the soldiers and the old man still couldn't quite understand. Under the old man's careful care, the injured soldiers began to show signs of life. The bandages and medicines worked wonders, and as the hours passed, they started to regain their strength. The others, though still cold and shaken, began to feel a spark of hope for the first time in days. Through it all, Robbin remained close by, standing watch at the door like a loyal guardian. His steady presence seemed to reassure the men, though a lingering question hung in the air. Had they truly escaped the worst of it? Was the storm the only enemy they'd faced? Or was there another challenge waiting just around the corner, something more dangerous than they could imagine? The soldiers could only wait, unsure of what the next day would bring. The howling wind grew louder, the snow falling harder, as the blizzard seemed determined to bury the small cabin. The soldiers, weak and exhausted, gathered what little strength they had left, preparing for what felt like the final assault. The storm was relentless. But in the midst of it all, Robbin stood tall outside, unfazed by the chaos surrounding them. His steady presence, calm in the face of the storm, gave the soldiers a sense of courage they hadn't known for days. Would the storm eventually break, or would it claim them all, burying them under its icy grip? With Robbin by their side, they held on to the hope that survival was still possible, even in the darkest of moments. As the first light of dawn peeked through, the storm clouds, the howling wind ceased, and the blizzard finally ended. The soldiers stepped outside, their eyes wide in disbelief. The world around them was a white, frozen landscape, but the deadly storm that had trapped them was gone. With the sun rising over the snow-covered ground, the soldiers turned to Robbin, their savior, who stood calmly by the cabin. They couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude and awe. Robbin had brought them through the worst, but now the real question loomed. What would happen to this brave horse? Would they ever see him again? And why had he appeared when they needed him most? With the injured soldiers now stable, the unit knew it was time to leave. They packed their gear and, one by one, began to march back to the world they once knew. Their steps heavy but hopeful. Robbin stood quietly, watching them from the doorway of the old man's cabin. His mission was complete. He had saved them all. But there was something in the air, a sense of unfinished business, as the soldiers glanced back at the horse who had led them through the storm. As they disappeared into the snowy horizon, the eyed question lingered. Would Robbin return to the quiet life of the village, or was his journey just beginning? Was this noble horse destined for something even greater than they had witnessed? The mystery remained, and the bond forged in the storm would never be forgotten. The The story of Robbin's bravery spread like wildfire, reaching towns far beyond the village where he had saved the soldiers. People spoke of the horse who had faced a deadly storm with nothing but courage in his heart, guiding those in need to safety. Robbin became more than just a horse. He became a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, help can come from the most unexpected places. The soldiers, now back in their homes, would tell his tale over and over, keeping his memory alive for generations to come. But as the legend grew, one question remained. Was Robbin simply a horse, or was he something much greater? Could his unwavering bravery inspire others to face their own storms with the same unshakable strength? The world would never forget the hero of the snowstorm.